tell us a little bit about yourself and also touch on your work background a little bit too.
Okay, yes, was born in Oshikati. I grew up in Namibia. After school, I joined the police force, pre-independence. After independence, I continued with Namibian police, where I joined the task force. That's where I received my diving qualifications, like the Namibian task force currently have. After that, I went for additional courses at PADI for rescue diving courses. And I'm also doing medical ambulance services and other rescue services as well in Namibia.
Give me a little bit background about your diving experience. When did you start diving, and are you still a diver now?
Yes, I'm still diving currently. I think I'm the oldest rescue diver currently in Namibia. Not by choice. I think nobody else wants to do the job. As you said, it's not a very well-liked job. It's emotionally draining. I've started in 1988. I did my diving courses, and then after independence in 1990, we had a case at Koreangap Dam where two parents were discussing a divorce, and they had kids on the water with one of these inflatable tubes. It capsized, and both the kids drowned, and I was the first police officer there, and that was my first body recovery that I've done.
You mentioned that it's quite a tough job and also emotionally draining. How do you cope?
You know what? You cannot say you cope. I go into tunnel vision. So I do the work. I recover the body. I tend not to talk to the families of close members of the public with that member. So I go to tunnel vision. I do my work and I leave. And I try not to think. At night when you sleep, it comes back to you. And you know what? It's only in God's hands. So you just ask him to please help me cope. As I said, I'm doing it now for 37 years. So it's never getting easier. Always people come to you and say, what about the children that you recover? It's not only the children. Sometimes it's the adults. It's the emotions that's around the scene when you are there. If you are there and you only recover the body, there's no family members. It's easier when you are alone. When there's family members, you see the crying, the stories they tell you about. It's the breadwinner. It's somebody in the family that you lose. That makes it more difficult because then even though you do not talk to the family, you connect with the situation.
Let's jog your 37 years of experience and memory a little bit, Mr. Openshaw. Can you recall your first drowning recovery operation, and how was that experience?
Yes. The first one was, as I said, in 1990, where I recovered two kids that fell over in a tube while the mother and father was talking at Koreangap about a divorce. They was trying to resolve the problems. And the call came through in the police radio. They needed ambulance urgency, so we went there. And that was my first recovery. I can recall that one is fresh in my mind. That's the first one you recover, how it feels when you touch somebody underwater, because you cannot see. So it's only on feeling. So that one I can remember. That was very difficult for me. As I said, after that, I was told not to do the diving there because the water is very, very, very filthy. But you know what? How do you tell a family member, a mother or father, that your kid's going to stay in the water for 3 days after he passed away?
How do you do that?
That's the problem. That's why I do the diving. So it doesn't matter if it's day or night. As soon as I get the call, I will go there and I will try to retrieve the body, because it's already difficult to tell a family member that, you know what, your child or your family member has passed away, but now you have to wait 3 or 4 or 5 days until you can see him. That's difficult. And I have been in that situation where it happened to me myself and nobody could help me. And that's where I decided and say, you know what, I will help as far and as long as possible.
Sounds very traumatic and emotional at the same time, Mr. Openshaw, but it's a dark and rather, emotionally taxing career. Were there times that you felt like, just packing up and saying, I don't want to do this anymore? And what motivated you to actually continue? Can you just delve a little bit more into that? I know we talked about it earlier.
You see, 2 years ago, I said, you know what, I'm going to retire the diving part. I'm getting too old for it, first of all. I'm getting too relaxed in the water, so I'm putting myself in danger. Measures that I usually put in place previously to recover bodies, I don't do anymore because it takes time, and you think, I've done it so many times, so why would I do it? And then I decided on that stage, I had an argument with family members about recovering a body where we tried 3 days, we searched for a body, we couldn't get it, and then eventually the body was in a completely different spot, and there was arguments and stuff next to the dam, and I just said to myself, you know what, I'm not going to do it. It's a community service, so I think I'm going to retire. I'm going to give it over to somebody. But the problem is, to who do I give it over? There's a lot of divers, there's a lot of good divers, but the people are not willing to go into that water due to the risks involved with that specific water. So to who do I give it? I said to my fellow workers, my family, I said, you know what, I will do it as long as possible, but where's as long as possible? I'm 54 years old, so will I do it until I'm 80? I'm not sure. So as long as I'm healthy and I'm able, I would like to do it. Or until I get somebody that is willing to take over from me. We have trained a lot of people for that purpose, but as soon as they do complete the training and it gets to the point that they have to do the diving alone into that water, they will do it once or twice, and then they will say, no, it's not worthwhile to take the risk for that. And as I said, it's a community thing. There's no money involved.
I'm listening to the word that you keep on saying, risk. There are health risks. What health risk comes with diving?
The health risk in diving is not such a big problem. As I said, if you dive in clear water, visible water, and you have the right equipment.
But what about muddy water?
Filthy water is a problem because, as I said, you still get water into your eyes. That's starting eye infections, ear infections. That filthy water goes into your mouth. So luckily, I'm in the medical field, so I get antibiotics for 7 days after I went into the water. So that's my own treatment that I take, and that's keeping me up. But as I said, we had, just after independence, we had 5 divers into the Kuranga Dam, police divers, and 2 of them passed away due to infections. So that's why, by standards, we are not allowed to dive there, actually. But as I said, emotionally, how do you tell a family member, sorry, I cannot do it?
Right, right. What made you start your own emergency service operation in the first place?
You see, what happened is, as I said, I was an ex-police officer. I got my training from the police force. Then I started working at Rescue 911, but that was a security company. It was better circumstances at that time. And then in that time, my son had an accident on a farm and he passed away. And there was no resources that was willing to help me with the body recovery and the emergency response. And there I went and I sat and I said to myself, you know what, I have the ability, I already have part of the training, why not start my own place and help people that cannot afford it? People, how can we say, you know what, you cannot afford medical aid, so you do not have access to a private ambulance. You do not have access to rescue jaws of life. You do not have access to a diver. You do not have access to a paramedic. And that's, I said, you know what, we are all equal. And in cases of emergency, you cannot bind that with income, with money. You cannot tell somebody, I can, but it's going to cost you. Because a lot of people in this country cannot afford. I couldn't afford. So why must I judge somebody else because he cannot afford? So as long as possible, we will do it. And that's why I started my own thing. And I said, you know what, I will do the ambulance. I will do everything. From the ground up, everything I will do. Whatever is an emergency, you can call us. So that's why we choose the name Crisis Response. So whenever there's a crisis, you call us and we will assist you.
Crisis response, and also the fact that, you know, you started this as your own initiative during the 37 years. But I also want to know, do you groom people? Do you train people? Because given the experience that you have, you would need to pass them on to others that want to actually do diving as well.
Yeah, you know what, that's what I said to you. There are training colleges where we refer people because we do not have the capacity to take people in and train them. But what we do is we take people from other colleges that do the practical parts and do it with us.
Yes.
But what we have found is on the medical field, we have more than enough people that is interested and that's following it through. But on the rescue part, everybody wants to do it. But as soon as they get the qualification, before they have even started doing the job, the first question you get is, how much will I pay if I go out into the field? And unfortunately, in my area of expertise, it's not bound by money, because it's bound by a need, urgent need. And that's a problem. As I said, we have trained a few people that's currently in Namibia, in Windhoek. But as soon as they will do 1 or 2 dives with me, and then they will say, no, it's not safe. They won't want to do it anymore.
Right.
And that is the biggest problem.
Now, you mentioned about the equipment, which is also a challenge when it comes to crisis diving. What needs improvement in that area?
You know what? Currently, we are all diving with normal diving suits, open circuits, so your mouth and everything is open. The water gets into your dive suit. There's there are equipment on the market, dry suits with special helmets and stuff that you don't need to get in touch with the water. That's much more safer and much more appropriate for our work. But the financial restraints to that, I'm talking about in the $100,000 to get a proper set. And it's separate training for that as well. We have the training facilities in Namibia, but nobody is willing to spend $100,000 for a community service. So we have talked to a lot of other institutions, say, you know what, maybe that is something that we must consider. But as soon as you get to the point that it's now time to acquire that equipment, they will say, you know what, but we need another ambulance more, because there's more ambulance calls. Why would we spend $100,000 for somebody that passed away, where we can spend $100,000 to save somebody? And if you think about it, it's true. But eventually we will have to get to that point and say, you know what, we are geared up for something like that. That says we have the proper equipment for any type of water. As I said, I went into Schuritz holes to recover bodies in Windhoek, in Utawi, and you know what, it's with a normal open circuit. So it's just like you jumping into and hold your breath. It's not the ideal circumstances, but I do it. But the problem is the next person will not be able to do it. But there is proper equipment for any diver to go in, and that will be willing to go in with that equipment.
And I think it's necessary for people to have that proper equipment.
Definitely it's necessary.
To do their job effectively.
Yes.
Indeed, indeed. Now, finally, how does one pursue a path in diving, especially rescue diving, as you are quite well expertise in that? What can one be trained, and what are the requirements for such a job?
You see, luckily for in diving, we don't have a specific requirement. Obviously, you do not have to be afraid for water. You must be a proper swimmer. You must be claustrophobic. And then you can go to the Windhoek Underwater Dive Club. You can start your first star diver there. That's your introduction, actually. You can do your second star. You can do your third star. And as I said, from there you can go to PADI. You can do a proper advanced rescue diver course. All of them, you do exactly the same. It's only from level to level where you learn different techniques to protect yourself. In the rescue diving part, the advanced rescue diving part, then they learn you search patterns. So how do you search for something? Is it from side to side? Is it in circles? And what is the advantages and disadvantages from the different search patterns? But as I said, the biggest thing is the willingness to go and say, you know what, I won't think about myself. I will protect myself as far as possible, but I want to do this work. And there's a lot of people that want to do it, and they actually come to the table, but as soon as they get into the water and they see the dangers of that, then they decide, you know, I'm not going to risk myself. But as I said, that's our biggest problem, is to get the person that is willing and say, I am willing to do this.
I am willing to do this. And how do you convey that message in terms of just encouraging the person to say, yes, it is tough, but how do I make sure that, you know, that the person continues doing crisis diving?
You know, I said always for the people, you know what, if you look at your bank account after you have done a rescue or a diving thing, you will cry. But you know how the feeling of a mother or a dad coming up to you and say, give you a hug and say, you know what, thank you very much for bringing our family member back. He's already passed away, but you know what, they have him in their hands. They know where he is. To take somebody to a body of water and say, you know what, your son is somewhere here. That is the reward. That's why I said, we tend nowadays to live for financial status. But financial status is nothing if you have the rewards. As I said, I was born in Namibia. My wife gets angry. She says, wherever you walk in, everybody knows you. Who's that? I don't know you, because they know me. It's not because I've done something for them. It's because I've done something for a family member or a friend of them. And that is where we must move back to the rewards. You know what? Thank you very much. That means much more than $1,000 in your pocket.
Definitely.
And that is what motivates me.
Yeah, definitely it is. Especially coming from another human being, you know, because that's what the whole purpose is, to save someone's life or to make an impact on their lives in one way or the other. Now, given the fact that you're doing this tough emotional job, Mr. Openshaw, how do you wind down? How do you relax? What do you do in a personal space? Just to close off the interview on that personal note.
Family is very important. Family time is very important. Support after you have recovered the body or after you were in the water, very, very important. And then your colleagues at work. that's every day with you, support. Yeah, you must go and dive. I am not less for diving, it's cold. Yes, let's go, it's for the company, it's for you, it's for somebody. That helps a lot. As I said, family afterwards, but in my job, I've got all the support from my colleagues. Even our manager supports all the way. 99% of the time, they are there next to the dam while I'm in the water, and they assist, and that helps a lot.